Hey, welcome to the Appalachian ADV Community Podcast. My name is Kane. I'm the owner of Appalachian ADV, and today I'm here talking with my friend Mike from Purple Lizard Maps. How you doing, Mike?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So, to kick this thing off, you've been super supportive of our events for the last couple years, and how I found you is kind of where I wanted to start this. So, when I first moved back up to the Youngstown area, I decided I needed to explore Pennsylvania on a motorcycle a little bit more. And as I started going out there, I would use like a lot of the state forest maps or the Allegheny National Forest maps. And they're good, but they're not like super detailed. So I decided I wanted to go over to the Bald Eagle area and kind of explore over there. And I remember searching for Bald Eagle maps, and I found Purple Lizard Maps. And I looked around at the website. I'm like, oh, these look great, you know. And then I found a store that was kind of local to that area that I knew I was going to be kind of going past that had them in stock. So I remember on the bike stopping at this store and grabbing that Bald Eagle map, which was a lifesaver. It was such a good, well put together map. The roads were plainly labeled. The dual sport trails, which is what I was wanting to kind of get into, were also like really well plotted. So it really helped me put together a good ride. And then, fast forward a few years, and I'm starting to do Appalachian ADV. And towards the beginning of that, I actually was trying to do a Bald Eagle rally, and I put one together, had a small group of people come, and then I pulled those Purple Lizard maps back out to help me put together like some ADV loops and some loops on that dual sport trail system. And the event was awesome. I had a blast. It was a small group of us, so we all had a great time. But I decided that was a little bit too far away for me for as many events as I'm doing to have too many that far away. So, but my plan is eventually to do another one out there. So I'll definitely be pulling out that one and the Rothrock map. So that was my introduction to Purple Lizard Maps. And then once I started doing the events, I remember reaching out to you, and we just kind of went back and forth. And I told you what I was trying to do and where I was going. And you jumped right on board right away, and always provided me like door prizes and discount codes for people to use. So super appreciated. But the point is, like, I try to highlight companies like mine that are small, mom and pop, quote unquote, so we can help support each other. So I was really happy that you jumped on board with us, and look forward to keep going with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy to support you, and that's it's a good backstory. I didn't know how you actually found us in the first place, but that's not an uncommon story. How people either find us online or pick up a map in a local store in an area that we do map. And it's funny because we are a really small company. It's my wife Justine and I,
Yeah.
and about 2.5 cartographers. We have I'm the lead cartographer, but we work out of a very small one-room office in State College, and we really like when you reached out to me. One of the reasons I was excited to support you, that's motorcycling. That's the brotherhood of the bike right there. That was me as a motorcyclist looking at what you were doing and saying, oh, this is perfect. I like what you're doing. I know how hard it is to get something going like you're doing, especially as a side hustle with a full-time job and a family and stuff. And that's exactly how Purple Lizard was a side hustle for me for years. And it's only been in the last decade that Justine and I really put our efforts into making it our full-time gig, a full-time publishing business, designing maps, mainly in Pennsylvania. But we do maps in Ohio and West Virginia, and we just published our first Maryland title, Western Maryland, Deep Creek area, Savage State Forest. We do maps of we did 2-map series of Shenandoah National Park. That's it's just an amazing East Coast landscape.
Yeah.
And people often, when I meet people and they find out what we're doing, and then they often, the common response now is like, paper maps, like, really, paper maps? And it's funny because paper maps are so essential, and people especially now we're at this turning point where there are groups of younger people that really have no paper map experience. You know, their whole world is digital. It all lives on their phone. And that's kind of my favorite part when we hear from those people and they're like, man, I picked up one of your maps and I had no idea what I was missing. You know, because there's a value to following the blue dot, to downloading a track that somebody put online and said, hey, this is cool, you should go ride it, and you download it and you just go follow the dot, right? You turn off your brain completely to navigating the landscape, and you're just following what somebody told you to follow. And you know, that's not how I like to explore landscape. Like on occasion I'll do that, but usually I would much prefer to open up a big map and study that state forest and study all those roads and take a look at that and be like, man, I can jump on this road and jump over to that road and put together this big loop and not be reliant on the tech and see all the great things that there are to do on there. Now, again, like you mentioned, it is a purple lizard map that unlocks that landscape in a way that other paper maps don't. So a lot of people that they might have a bad experience on a paper map because they got the free map, you know, the brochure map at the parking lot, and they're like, this is hard to read. This isn't so helpful. Then they open up our map and it's like 3 times as detailed and twice as big and on waterproof paper. And like you said, and thank you for the compliments on that, because that's exactly what I want to hear. Like as a designer, there's always the map legend. You know, people look at the legend to see, you know, if it's a road or a trail or things like that. And I like that in most cases, you only have to glance at that legend. Our maps should be pretty self-explanatory. You know, the dirt roads are brown, the paved roads are red or the color of pavement. If they're gray, if they're a township road, we show the 4-wheel drive roads. It should be very intuitive to look at our map and be like, man, I had no idea there were all these things to do in this area.
Yeah, that's the thing I like about him, is it shows the features. Like if you're looking at a small GPS device, you have a very limited view of what you can see. So, I mean, any good adventure rider, you know, attempts to use both. If you're trying to follow an actual route, you need to have a GPS on the bike, but you always have to have that paper map, and it really helps you know, what you're getting yourself into. Like your maps have those excellent like terrain features, and like you're saying, it tells you exactly what type of terrain you're actually going to be putting your rubber on. So it helps a shit ton when you have those things at your disposal to make a good route.
Yeah, and then we also put, you know, we put the waterfalls and we put the vistas and we put the picnic areas and we put the, you know, the state parks. We put all the little hidden gems you might find along the way, which basically gives you like a breadcrumb trail to piece together.
Right, yeah.
Like, hey, what's over there, you know? And in a lot of cases, we just put the little purple lizard on there and we don't tell you what it is. You have to go there to find out what the reward is once you get there, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
It's most commonly, it could certainly be a vista. It could be a piece of old growth forest. It could be a neat spot. And some of those you can ride right up to. Some of those you have to make a lot more effort and hike into to find.
As a guy that puts together like events and guided rides and stuff, like a lot of times those things that you're talking about, those pinpoints, are the things that I want to showcase on the ride. So a lot of times those are the dots that I'm connecting, but I'm trying to find like the dirt gravel roads or the drivable trail or whatever it is that helps me make the connection more interesting, so that it is, the journey is about the destination, but it's also about the journey. Like it's about getting from one point to the other and making it the most interesting. And having a good map definitely helps me put together those routes.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point, because that's like the GPS world, not so much for ADV, but GPS navigation in general. It's all about finding the fastest route, right? That's what the algorithm's programmed to do, is to give you the fastest route. Even like sometimes when you're driving, it doesn't make any sense because they shortcutted you through some weird back road neighborhood, right? Just to bypass the highway for 3 miles because it shaved 2 seconds off the algorithm.
Right.
But when I'm going out for a ride, the point is not the fastest route. It's exactly the opposite. I want the most interesting route. I want the most enjoyable route. I want to find that. I want to look at the map and see where the road gets all squiggly and be like, oh man, look at that. What is this? If I see 3 hairpins in a mile and a half, like I want to go there and see what's happening there.
Right.
So it's about finding, our maps are about finding the most interesting route. And I mean, to some extent, that's what the BDR is all about. That's what the MABDR is. And we worked with those guys for years when they were putting together the MABDR. We worked with Jack O'Connor and
Yeah.
met a lot of those guys when there was an East Coast Tour Tech Rally as part of the Mid-Atlantic Overland Festival.
Yep.
And I was on a KLR at the time, and I took those guys out into Bald Eagle and took them on a lot of the routes that are on the MABDR now.
Yeah.
There's a crew from the Pine Barrens Adventure School, and later, 3 years later or so, the MABDR comes out, and it's on. It covers 5 of our maps, between West Virginia and PA, so they were definitely using our maps to look at that and figure out how can we do that. But you're an ambassador, and their routes are great, and I meet a lot of riders out in Rothrock or Tuscarora or Pine Creek or Bald Eagle, all those forests, because I live right in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
And I'll meet guys out doing the BDR, and they're so excited about it. And I'll tell them, I'm like, you guys could come back to any one of these forests, and you could spend 5 days here, and you'd be hard pressed to ride the same roads twice.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Like Bald Eagle, there are no bad roads in Bald Eagle State Forest, and there are a lot of really challenging roads in that forest that aren't on the MABDR because they can't be, right? The BDR is a point-to-point ride, so it's not going to come in and then put you in 2 days of figure eights riding all through an area. But that's what you can do in a place like Bald Eagle with our maps, and the quality of riding in that state forest is really stunning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a good thing about the BDR, and that's a good thing about, coming through Pennsylvania in particular, is there's just so much great riding off of that one line that's cutting through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that one line will take you, over a week to go from start to finish. And you could come back and spend another week, like you said, in each of those little spots. So since we're talking about point to point, and I want to take a step back and maybe go into your history and see what path you took to actually get you from your hometown high school to Purple Lizard Maps. Like, so where are you? Tell everybody where you're from and kind of where you went to college and some of that cartography experience you built before Purple Lizard Maps.
Well, where I'm from is always a tricky one for me to answer because I was a bit of a military brat kid, so I moved around.
Yeah.
I was rarely in the same town or state for more than 2 years up until the end of high school. So I had lived in some on the East Coast and some out west. I was born in California. We lived in Long Island, New York. We lived in a couple towns in New Jersey, a couple towns in Pennsylvania, a couple towns in Arizona. And then I landed in State College, Pennsylvania at age 15. So I moved here from Fort Huachuca, Arizona, down on the Mexican border in southern Arizona. So sort of it was funny when I got my degree in geography from Penn State, and that's where I got introduced to map making.
Yeah.
And in the geography department, one of my professors made the comment. He's like, "Well, you're already a geographer," because like most kids go to college and maybe they've lived in 2 places.
Yeah.
And I'd lived in East Coast and West Coast and in deserts and in the forest, and I'd lived in the suburbs, and I'd lived really rural. So I had a really diverse background and a lot of travel in there because my parents would often we'd take a month moving between those gigs.
Yeah.
And that was piling into the station wagon or later in the big Ford van and driving around the country. So I'd like, to me, I had seen so much of America at 15, and I'd come into towns and meet kids who had, like, oh, well, I went on vacation once to Florida, and I'd already been in like 38 states or something. I had a pretty good understanding of the country at large. And I think a lot of that, I would ride shotgun in the van at times and have the atlas open, and be looking at the maps. And I remember as a kid, crossing the country on something like Route 80 and just be looking at all the 90-degree roads that pass you, that go out into Nowheresville, and being like, man, what's down there? What's down there? So I had this strong sense of adventure. And my father really, he was a rider. So when I was 16 or 17 here in Pennsylvania, my dad and some of his buddies put together a motorcycle trip up through northern Maine and ferried over to Newfoundland.
Nice.
And I went on that trip, and that was camping. I rode my own bike. That was a Suzuki 550. And, we had our camping gear on the back. And that was the 80s. That was not the era of ATGAT. That was a Harley leather jacket at best, and we didn't, and I didn't have that. Some of the guys, we had some Harley guys with us that had that gear, but I didn't have that gear.
Yeah.
It was hiking boots and blue jeans and leather gloves from like Tractor Supply or Sears or something, But that was that sense of exploration, jumping on a motorcycle and riding to Newfoundland, and camping off the bike and just seeing, opening my eyes even further as a kid. So that idea of travel was always instilled in me as a young kid. So I'm sure that, like, when you look back as an adult and be like, man, how did I end up doing this?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure all of my travel did that, and my parents driving around the country, crisscrossing the country so many times. A lot of people, that's their big thing, right? I'm going to drive across the country, or I had done that like half a dozen times before I was old enough to drive, and then did it again many times later. It was very common for me to do that. So I got a degree in geography with map making at Penn State, and from there, I have to say I was just extremely fortunate in the timing, because I was a first generation digital cartographer.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't know if it would have caught my attention as much if it wasn't digital, if it was in the era of like hand scribing and lettering and stuff. But it was early digital, so very crude by today's standards, very limited in what we could do. But I really like the design end of it and the art end of it, as well as the sort of the virtual travel part of it. And that just opened up. I had a job offer from Trails Illustrated in Colorado before I graduated, in my senior year.
Nice.
So I blew off college graduation, the night that my class was graduating at Penn State. I was pitching a tent on high on the rim on Porcupine Rim outside of Moab, Utah.
Nice. I'd rather be there too.
and just enjoying life, And so that's what started it. Was I was at Trails Illustrated. They were in the process of being acquired by National Geographic, and that's the company today is Trails Illustrated National Geographic Maps. And I made their Moab maps. I worked on their product line and worked on taking them from manual to digital workflows. And I was just really frustrated with their design, because they had a certain look and feel, and they weren't, and that was their look and feel, and they weren't, that you couldn't really change that. I really was driven creatively to try something differently. So I quit a perfectly good job out west and came back to Appalachia and started Purple Lizard Maps. My first map of Rothrock State Forest. So like the timing was twofold. That map was published in 1997, my first map.
Okay.
And that was like the beginning of desktop publishing when you could kind of do that. You know, you could buy a computer and you could do things in in your
Right.
home office, you know. And I didn't even have a home. I moved back in with my old college roommates, you know. I was back just trying to make it happen, working part-time in a bicycle shop and mountain biking and riding motorcycles and making that map.
Nice.
And then career-wise, I published that map. I was a freelance cartographer for about 3 years, and that led to a full-time staff position with the University of Maine in northern Maine in Orono, above Bangor,
Yeah.
not far from Acadia National Park. Um, so I moved to Maine, and I designed the historic atlas of Maine and a whole bunch of other products, map related products through the university in the state of Maine up there for about 10 years. And then as towards the end of that was when I wanted to try something different. And that's when I came back to Pennsylvania and really put the time and effort into growing the product line with Purple Lizard maps. And
Yeah.
that brings us up where we are today.
Nice. Yeah.
So I think that I honed my skills at National Geographic and then again at the University of Maine. Professionally, I worked with on the board and eventually became president of North American Cartographic Information Society and NACIS. And you know, I was really involved in a lot of academic cartography as well as commercial cartography. And so having a foot in both of those camps in publishing and the academic world was a really unique position to be in.
Yeah.
And riding motorcycles and doing what you know, I called it car camping before overlanding was sort of the phrase.
Yeah.
When I was in northern Maine, I took that opportunity to just continue to explore north. Since I was living so far north, I would ride all over Maine and up into Canada.
Nice. That's a good segue into well, before I do that, like it's one thing I noticed when I like the very first time I grabbed that Purple Lizard map from that little tiny store was it was more like of an artistic feel to it,
Mm-hmm.
like a regular map, because there is so much detail and so much time and effort. You could tell so much time and effort was put into the whole thing, the presentation of the whole thing, the way you kind of have it the coloring of it and everything is just, it's very artistic.
Yeah, we try to, you know, try to do a lot with the typography to make it legible. That's probably my biggest complaint with the digital map environment is like the maps just aren't very good. You know, it drives me nuts. How is it that I can't read a street name on like Google and you zoom in on it and everything gets bigger except the word you're trying to read gets smaller.
Yeah, that is super annoying.
Like and they just don't have well, again, you know, they're trying to put together a global database, and they're just pulling free data from as many sources as they can scrape from, and so it's not vetted the way people expect it to be vetted.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's the fundamental difference with the Purple Lizard map is when we decide to do a map, we're in that landscape. You know, we work on that map for a year, maybe 2 years. We drive those roads or ride those roads. We hike into a lot of those trails. We visit all those state parks. We find all those places. We meet with the land managers. We meet with the locals. You know, we put in a lot of time and effort to learn that landscape. And that's why that MapWorks is such a good tool to unlock that landscape for other people, because we're sharing our knowledge. I mean, that's like basically, you know, you're guiding people.
Mm-hmm.
Our map is basically a silent guide for people. Yeah, you're guiding people, and so they're showing up and expecting you to show them the good stuff, right?
Right.
Give us a tour. Let's follow your wheel for a while and see where you go.
Yeah.
And we've driven that whole forest. So, you know, without us creating an actual track that's suggesting, hey, go here and do this, we expect the map reader to open that up and get excited by it and just look at the different areas and connect the dots and decide what it is that experience they want to have on it and put that together.
Yeah.
But it's really it's about unlocking a landscape on a really broad level for people. And I mean, we're talking, of course, our focus is motorcycles because that's one of our hobbies. But I always wanted Purple Lizard to be completely multidisciplinary across the full breadth of outdoor recreation, because most people do. I hope most people do more than one thing. Most people are out there, and you might meet them on a mountain bike, or you might meet them camping, or might meet them on a motorcycle. But when you get to talking to them, they do other things. They're into kayaking, or they're into fly fishing, or they're into hiking or backpacking, or they might have a pickup back at home with a camper on it, or they've got their stories and their things they want to do. So our maps are going to show you everything you can do on that landscape. We're going to have the boat launches. If you want to put together river trips, if there's water trails, we'll be talking about the mileage between put-ins and takeouts. If there's rail trails, if there's single track mountain biking, if there's dual sport trails, if the trails are open for equestrians, all the backcountry campsites. If it's like a numbered reservable site, we'll plot all of those. We'll show the high clearance roads, the drivable trails, trying to give everybody the tool to tackle what they want. I mean, we get like some of the questions we get are, especially with the drivable trails. So for people who aren't familiar with Pennsylvania state forests, DCNR will take certain roads and choose to not maintain them, and they will classify that as a drivable trail, and they will only go in and do maintenance on that road if it really becomes unpassable. And some of them are pretty rough. Now, almost all of them you can do in a stock SUV. Some of them will push the limits of a Subaru Outback. I would say any Toyota 4Runner or Nissan Xterra or Jeep Wrangler type product or full-size pickup truck can drive any of them. Some of them you're going to have to be careful a little bit. You might have to stack rocks. And if you don't know what that means, stacking rocks, then you probably aren't ready to be on that road yet. And we occasionally will get feedback from people who'll be like, man, I took my Jeep out there and those aren't I never had to put it in 4-wheel drive, and then it's like somebody that's got a Jeep on 35s or 37s, it's not, they're not that kind of a road. And we're not, both DCNR's perspective and our perspective, we're not calling that out as a high clearance road so that's some kind of rock climbing, crawling challenge.
Right.
It's exactly the opposite. It's so that the family in the Honda Odyssey minivan with 4 scouts going to find a trailhead don't take that road, because your GPS will route you on that road, right? Your Google Maps and your Garmin have no idea that that's a high clearance road, so they'll tell you to get to the state park by taking that road, and you will not get down you'll leave your front clip behind.
You run into multiple people out there, particularly in Bald Eagle area. The one guy, he was doing it on purpose. He was by himself in like a hatchback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was making it. He was almost through the whole thing. And then this other time, we were over by Flat Hollow, and there's this van coming from the other direction, and we stop and we start talking to them, and they're like dressed up in like suits and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, the GPS told us that the place we're going to is right up the road, and we're like, you definitely don't want to go that way. You're gonna end up getting stuck. And the ladies almost started tearing up a little bit. Like, I'm like, no, it's fine. You're at the place. It gets far worse the further you go. So we actually found you at the right spot where you can get out of here real easy. So you definitely don't want to follow the Google all the time.
No, you don't. And it's funny because I'll be going down some rough section of road, on like when I had for a couple of years, I rode an Africa Twin, and I'm like thinking, man, this is getting pretty choppy here for a big bike. And and I look up and there's a Subaru, and sometimes they want to be there, and sometimes, like you said, they did not expect to be there, and they just want like I help them turn around and retreat while they can. But that's the thing of it too, because honestly, you probably can get down most of those roads in a little hatchback or something if you really pay attention and don't care about some undercarriage damage and want to take the risk, you could probably pull that off.
Uh-huh.
Well, and that's also, so that's a unique thing about this part of Appalachia is the rocks.
Yeah.
You know,
Tons of
we're
rocks.
really rocky. So you don't find much mud in Bald Eagle. You find standing water, so what looks like and what is, could be a couple 100 feet
Yeah.
in spring or summer of stinky, mucky water, but 6, 8 inches down, it's only like 2 inches of actual sediment and muck, and underneath that is stone and rock.
Yeah.
So you're not usually wallowing in mud like if you go further south in Appalachia, like Kentucky, Alabama, parts of West Virginia. The farther south you go, the more you really find mud.
Yeah.
The rocks are kind of work in our favor.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's nice because it's not a majority of it isn't like loose rock either. It's kind of embedded. There's some
It's
loose rock
slab,
here and
yeah.
there, but it's like hard, easy to get over as long as it's dry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the reasons that those are often the drivable trails. Because what's the Forest Service going to do to like make those rocks smooth? They literally, it's not appropriate. We don't want them paving it. So I love finding those roads. And sometimes we'll find township roads. We'll find non-maintained township roads on some of our maps that we feel are rough. And that's a subjective decision. Again, I sort of look at it like, well, can the Honda Civic drive down here? Can a standard sedan drive down here? And we'll often, like, we do most of our work currently in a full-size Toyota Tundra.
Yeah.
So I'm rolling on 34-inch tires, and it's got skids and sliders, and there's not much that truck is challenged by in Pennsylvania outside of going to a pay-to-play park. For a public road. But we've also had a Toyota RAV4, and currently we have a CRV as our other car, a Honda CRV. So, and we put light truck tires on those cars, but that's sort of a barometer too. If I'm comfortable driving down that road in a Honda CRV, then it's probably not a high clearance road by any means.
Right. So that was another thing, like, kind of talking about it now, like when I was going through your website before we jumped on, something struck me, the cartography hits the road type of thing, because that, how I've built a lot of my routes is by just continuously going out there and putting miles in and finding stuff and connecting things here and there. And I can't imagine, do you guys keep track of that? Like, how many miles have you guys ridden going out there and finding all this great stuff?
No, we don't really keep track of it that way. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. When we go into the field to do straight up field work, actually like embed ourselves in an area just to do the mapping work, we've tried to go for long stretches of time, like a week, and we can't do it. It's too exhausting. It sounds fun, but we find about 3 days is good, because usually you're going to spend half a day driving to the area.
Yeah.
And then we find we drive about, on average, 100, between 80 and 125 miles a day is about what we can cover in a forest, doing dirt roads, just trying to drive every road and get to the intersections and make sure that the road name that's posted is actually the road name that's on the map, because those oftentimes don't match up. Finding things like gates. Gates are like a huge gray area. The gated roads don't show up on GPSs and don't show up on a lot of other maps.
Yeah.
And then finding the gates and plotting them on our map, and then working with the Forest Service to find out, are they ever open? Are they seasonal gates? Because a lot of times, like, you'll drive through a gate, it's open, and then you'll come back 3 months later and that gate will be closed.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the gates are open for certain hunting seasons. Sometimes they're just open seasonally. A lot of gates will just be closed in December because there's too much of a risk of people driving back there when the ridge tops are snowy and icy. So figuring out the gates, it's a lot of driving past something and backing up you know, a few times we've taken reporters or journalists out with us for a day, and that's their comment, you know, because you're driving down a road and we've got our prototype map, our draft map out, both on paper in the car that we're making notes on, and we run it on a tablet, which usually in a draft form on the Avenza Maps platform. And we're looking for intersections. We're looking for where hiking trails come out or where closed roads come out or things like that. We're also running Gaia because Gaia helps us pull up the old topo maps. And oftentimes we also want to see the historical topo maps, you know, from World War II era to see where some of these remnant roads and stuff go, what they might be. So a lot of the old hiking trails and stuff were old former logging roads or things like that. So we're really trying to look at a lot of different resources. And so you'll overshoot what you're looking for. You know, you'll hit the brakes and you'll back up 70 feet, get out, check some things out, get back in the truck, go forward, do that again. The funny parts are when we drive up these dirt roads and we know they're going to dead end at the top. We know they're going to be gated at the top. The question is, are we going to be able to turn around at the top? And so many times I get up there and it's like, oh man, I wish I was on either. It's like sometimes that's a good situation to be on a motorcycle. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
You know, usually if I'm in the full-size Tundra, there's lots of times you wish we had like a short wheelbase Wrangler in that instance, because you're like, this is going to be a 17-point turn.
Yeah.
And we got, if we don't drop the back wheels off the ledge and be stuck here. Or like doing work on the Africa Twin. I had to get rid of the Africa Twin. I had the adventure version. It's so tall.
It is tall.
And you get to those gates, those dead end periods, and you have to turn around. It was so hard on that bike. Lots of times I literally couldn't do it. And I'm 6 feet tall. I'm long legged.
Yeah.
But when you're on a little bit of an angle, I put the bike on its side stand and, you know, pivot it around on the side stand to get it turned back around, because I didn't
Never worked.
trust myself to roll back and feather the front brake and bring the nose around and go downhill again.
That's funny. So the gate, the thing you mentioned about the gates, like that always, as going out and scouting stuff, the gate thing always kills me. You never know if it's open or closed. But what I've found, and I actually built it into some of our rides, where we will actually take people down those, knowing that it's going to end and have to turn around. We actually, instead of a dead end, we call it a happy end, because it's kind of fun going in there. You go in a place that not many people go into.
Yeah, they're often great. They're often great roads.
Yeah.
You know, and you get to the end and you turn around and riding it back, it's a completely different experience going the other direction.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not a waste of time, in my opinion. You're taking them somewhere nobody hardly ever goes.
Right.
It feels one way going out there, and then you can kind of pick up the pace a little bit going back, but it is still different enough that it's a completely new experience.
Yeah. And again, like that's the beauty of going out on a bike just to explore, like just to go out and ride and just to play. Which is I think what a lot of people think doing field work as a map maker is like. But there's a little more pressure on it, you know, because we're trying to make notes and get it right. And then of course, then we have to go back, you know, then we come back to the office, and then you're going through those pages of all those notes on the map and trying to make sure you make those updates correct on the computer file once you're back at the office to get the map into shape. And then we often we find a lot of questions, you know. It's like, well, you know, I got 3 different names for this road. The Forest Service map calls it this, and the township map calls it this, and Google calls it this. Like, what are we going to go with? And that's always like a tough call, because it's like, which one do you pick?
Yeah.
Because like I want to default to the one that's on the sign, so that if they're using our map and they're on that intersection with a question, they can look at that sign and it will make sense.
Yeah.
But also, if they're using a Google or a Garmin or something else that's pulling from a different resource, and then we'll meet with the with the Forest Service, or we'll ask the township manager, and sometimes they're aware of it and sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're like, yeah, they've got it wrong. And then you ask the other people and they're like, yeah, no, they got it wrong. And it's like, all right, you guys are never going to get this sorted out.
I think the correct answer is just nobody has it right, that it's right for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll put both on some of them.
Or combine the name into one.
And the other big thing that we really strive to do is to not put people in bad situations on private land.
Yeah.
And so that's another huge
Right.
problem with the digital era, is that there's a lot of GPS default routing on roads that are now private roads.
Right. Yep.
So it might be that you just drive on it. If you're lucky, you drive on it and you hit a gate and you turn around and you're annoyed.
Yeah.
If you're not so lucky, you meet the angry landowner on the side by side, waving a pistol at you.
Yeah.
And that's happened to us as well. So
Yep.
we're always trying to clarify, because sometimes you'll see no trespassing signs, but they're on the trees.
Yeah.
So it's no trespassing outside of the road corridor, but you're
Right.
allowed to drive the township road.
Yeah.
People are posting their land, so you can't stop and hunt their land or go camp on their land or whatever, but you
Right.
can pass through. But other times you can't pass through, and they may not have a formal gate that says that, and the signs might not be that clear.
Yeah.
Or other times the signs are extremely clear that this road's protected by Smith and Wesson, and you're on camera and all that stuff.
Yeah, those ones are nice because then you know for sure. Yeah, I'll just
Right.
that.
Right. And on occasion we'll have the conversations with the township or with the land managers, and they'll be like, yeah, it's a public road, but it's a really, really hostile landowner. And
Yeah.
so we'll just say, you know what, we're just not going to show that road.
Yeah.
Because again, it gets back to does that road have to be there? It just goes in and dead ends. And if
Right.
there's some guy down there, with a Smith and Wesson and
In an
angry all the time, sipping off a bottle of Jack Daniels, then I don't want to send my customers down there. There's nothing at the end of that road. I mean, yeah, you can drive to the end of that road, and so maybe some of the locals know they can go down there to go hunting or something. But from a tourism standpoint, if you're just exploring a forest, there's no reason to drive to the end of that road just to turn around and come back, like we were talking about. That's fun on some gated roads, but it's not fun if there's an angry confrontation waiting for you. So
Right.
I know a handful of our maps where we've just taken that road off because it's not worth putting our people in that position.
Better safe.
And every time we go back to update that map, we always ask the land managers, or it's like, did that guy die yet or sell his land? Is that still a thing?
Funny. So it's something else I'd noticed. It's something that I kind of took from the BDR, and I noticed it was on your website too. It was kind of like that support for the small communities. You're spending a lot of time out there, so I'm sure that's a good part of it, is trying to bring some of that, tourism money out into those areas that have been hard hit, losing whatever business was in that area at one point in time. So I did notice you had that in there too.
It's very important. And Purple Lizard Maps, I mean, when I started it, it was like, all right, well, this is great because we have a product now that these little mom and pop shops can sell, right? And they can make a good margin on it, right? They make more money selling a Purple Lizard Map than they make selling a sandwich, and it's a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't have to worry about buying too much bread and having it go moldy or having the meat go bad or whatever. It's a shelf stable item. It also totally saves them time and effort when they have the people asking them like, hey, I'm freaked out because I thought my phone was going to work out here and it doesn't. And how am I going to get to this spot? Or, where should I go? I heard there was this lake, or I heard there was this vista, or I heard there was this cave or something. And instead of their employees taking the time to try to explain that on a napkin and hand it to them, They can be like, hey, you just get that purple lizard map here. I'll show you where you are and what you're looking for. And here's 5 different ways you can get there.
Yeah.
And then those people are like totally excited. Like, oh my God, this is fantastic. But, we've been doing this a long time. And the feedback that, what we've progressed to is a whole higher level of thinking about how Purple Lizard Maps helps the economy. And that's when you talk to realtors that are like, yeah, I sold a house to a couple that found this whole community because they bought one of your maps,
That's awesome.
and they were like looking for either a second house or they were looking for a place to retire.
Yeah.
Or, people come out there and they have the ability to remote work. And then they find some aspect using our maps to explore that landscape. And they're like, well, this place has high-speed internet. Like I could actually work here. Why am I driving from New Jersey
Yeah.
4 hours every Friday afternoon to come up here for the weekend? I can just live up here full time and do what I do with my laptop.
Nice.
So that sort of, really big picture, actually not just helping the local businesses, but helping the tax base, helping grow the community, helping to get more people to spend more time in that area, not just one weekend a month or on their trip. And I mean, I think you probably see that too, because you're guiding people through landscapes that they didn't know existed. They didn't think about that as a potential weekend recreation. I always, I laugh when people, it's great to go out west, go out west. I lived in Colorado and Utah and Arizona. I know that area really, really well. And I feel like the Western mountain landscape, I call it a picture postcard landscape because it's magnificent, right? You get to these vistas, whether they're just on like I-70 or something in Colorado, and you're like, oh my God, look at this, like Vail Pass or some of these amazing places. But then when you really want to like get into that landscape, you realize it's 80 to 100 miles between gaps, right? And so, when I was living out there, it was funny because we would go to put together these epic mountain bike rides or these hikes, or just these backcountry drive the truck, through the woods in the middle of nowhere up over these passes. But you drive like 2.5 hours out of Denver just to like start.
Yeah.
And then when you're there, you have your adventure for like 5 or 6 hours, and then it's another 2 hours back. And if you think about that in East Coast landscape, Appalachian landscape,
Yeah.
our mountains are so much more accessible.
Oh yeah.
We have a gap every 15 miles.
Yeah.
We can go and put together all these loops. Like, I mean, I'm fortunate because living in central PA, I am in 7 minutes, I can be from my house, I can be on the Bald Eagle Dual Sport 322 Sand Mountain Trailhead.
Yeah. You're surrounded by it, man.
I can be on dirt in literally 2 minutes from my house, and I can be on dirt for continuous, 300,000-400,000 acres of dirt to explore.
Yeah.
And when I was out in Colorado, I would tell the people that I was playing with out there, I was like, man, you guys, nobody in Pennsylvania thinks they have to drive 2.5 hours just to start their adventure. We have so much, we're fortunate that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've definitely had people come to one of the events in one of those locations, and basically by the end of it, they're like, oh, I'm going to definitely come back. I'm going to bring my wife, I'm going to bring my kids, or it just opening up their eyes to the possibilities that's actually a lot closer than they realized.
And that's how we design our maps, with what I call organic growth, where we try to, like, our first map was Rothrock. And so it's like so many of those maps overlap in that central Pennsylvania corridor now. So you can go almost from the New York state line up, not quite to New York, but we go to Wellsboro, PA, top of the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. And then there are 5 or 6 or 7 purple lizard maps, all continuously overlapping through state forests all the way down to Michaud, down to the Maryland border. And then, there's a little bit of a gap as you jump over to like the Laurel Highlands, Ohio Powell region, but that map overlaps with Deep Creek, We have the Elkins and the Dolly Sod Seneca Rocks maps. That's the whole northern tier of the Monongahela National Forest. And those maps unlock so much amazing dual sport riding
That's beautiful
and,
down
and overlanding opportunities on that. Everybody goes to the Dolly Sods because that's the iconic one and the popular one in Seneca Rocks. But actually, my wife and I, we really prefer the Elkins map,
there.
the
Yeah.
Elkins Otter Creek map, because it has like 80% less people. Like, almost more really interesting dirt roads back in the absolute middle of nowhere, the Otter Creek Wilderness, and that whole side of that. That whole area is really amazing. But like there's so much to explore on our maps in PA. We just started to work on a 3-year project with the Pennsylvania Wilds. So we haven't actually formally announced that. I guess we sort of did, but we'll expand on that more next month. But our first map to work on those guys, which will be this year, and hopefully go from start to finish, actually be published at the end of this year as well, is Susquehannock State Forest.
Oh, nice.
And so that's Coudersport area, Route 6 at the northern tier, and then going south down into like Sproul State Forest and Elk State Forest towards our Cohana map. And that map will basically like pick up our Pine Creek map and take that landscape to the west. And then the big picture for the next 3 years with the PE Wilds is to do blanket coverage of that with Susquehannock and Sproul State Forest and Elk State Forest, and then a 2-map series of Allegheny National Forest. So that's going to bring us right into your backyard.
Yeah.
I'll be leaning on you for some local knowledge.
Perfect. I was going to ask you about Allegheny, actually, if you were planning on getting over there anytime soon. And
we are. We hope to be doing field work on Allegheny National Forest this year, with the idea that we will be able to publish both maps in 2026.
Oh, cool.
So we're still trying to work that out, but that's the goal, is to do Susquehannock from start to finish this year and start the research and the field work on Allegheny. And when you do a 2-map series, it's trickier. And we're splitting Allegheny in a east and west 2-map series.
Yeah.
That way because we're looking at how people, again, we did some exploratory work in 2024. We went up and met with the foresters, and we met with a lot of the PA Wilds people up in through the communities of Warren and Kane and Bradford and Ridgeway.
Mm-hmm.
We do map a little bit of that. I mean, we have our Cook Forest map, which picks up the Marionville and the southern part, the Clarion River, but it just sort of touches on the southern end of Allegheny National Forest.
Yeah.
But this map will blanket all of it. And so in learning how people use that landscape, one of the reasons to split that instead of north and south, but to do it east and west, is because that's usually how people are approaching that landscape. They're either coming from the east or the west. They're not really coming I mean, they might be coming from the north or the south, but you make a decision. Are you going to be on like the community side, the Kane, the Kane Ridgeway corridor? Are you going to be staying there and accessing it that way?
Yeah.
Or like the western version of that map will be really neat, because you'll be able to pick up the Allegheny River from the Kinzua Dam and take it all the way south until it leaves the map down there by past Marionville and that area. So, and that's going to be a diverse map, because there's a lot to do in A&F, and that's a really interesting national forest. I think it's I want to say it's underutilized, because certainly a lot of people use it.
For sure.
But it's really hard to unlock.
Yeah.
It's really hard to show up at Allegheny National Forest with the current tools.
Yeah.
And figure it out. It's one thing if you're just going to camp for 2 nights and you've got like a hiking trip planned, but if you really want to explore it, and part of that is because, that is a working forest. So, and that's something that people don't necessarily think of, depending on where they're from or what their background is, there's a big difference between national forest and national park. And you go to like Shenandoah National Park, which we did a 2-map series of, and it's an amazing map and an amazing landscape, but there's no gray area in a national park. Like the National Park Service, there are hard and fast rules. You can drive down that road or you cannot drive down that road. You can hike that trail, but you cannot mountain bike that trail. National forests are a little bit, there's more gray in there.
Sure.
There's more off-trail happening. There's active logging happening. There's active oil and gas happening. There's often, it's not contiguous landscape, so there's pockets of private land in the middle that might be unclear that you're entering it. And some of those working forests are open to like you can ride down that road. That's okay. You can't camp on that road, but you can ride through it. And then of course they have an ATV trail network.
Yep. Good one.
And I think, I mean, you know better than me. Some of that's open to a plated bike.
Yeah, pretty much all of it. Like they have 5 different trails. 3 of them are connected by Marionville. The other 2 are kind of off on their own. But I do a rally there in Marionville, and we set up adventure rides because there's good dirt and gravel roads. But those adventure and dual sport bikes can go into those trails too with the trail pass. So
yeah, right. And so that's another thing, right? So you need a trail pass. Yeah. So that's like also a lot of the information that we try to convey to people in advance, just to let them know that you need to put certain things in place before you just show up and veer off on this.
It's funny.
But I'm looking forward to riding those trails. I've seen some of them because some of that trail system down south by the Clarion River we checked out. Yeah. They just sort of start on our Cook Forest map. But the bulk of that stuff we have not mapped and have not checked out. So are they big bike friendly? Are they mid bike friendly? Are they more like what I saw was honestly kind of like a pretty tame gravel 2-track sort of. It didn't...
The Timberline Trail, it's rated like the easiest, so it is very big bike friendly. It is, I mean, it's still challenging. You need some skills to ride, it's straight trail, but it's a mixture of old railroad grade and some forest roads and then some jaunts into the woods where you're dodging some rocks and trees and stuff. So it's not easy per se, but it is definitely big bike friendly. The one thing that worries me the most about the Timberline Trail, it is rated for pretty much all skill levels, and it is 2-way traffic. So some bends you come around, there might be a side-by-side coming at you the other direction. So that the Timberline is probably the most dangerous just because of that 2-way traffic. The Marionville Loop, which is also, it's their moderate rated trail, a lot of it is 1-way. And then the Peno Trail there, it's really difficult, and if you're going to take a big bike in there, you better have expert level skills or be willing to pick up your bike a good 24 times.
Right.
But it is also 1-way traffic, so those are a little bit safer, but they are more challenging. And if you go up to Rocky Gap has like a moderate and a hard, also big bike friendly. You definitely need some skills on those, but they're also pretty much 1-way traffic. Willow Creek's the same way. It's like a moderate rating. It's a nice big loop and it's 1-way traffic. The good thing about Willow Creek too is it's less traffic because it's kind of way up north. Not much around it, and there's a lot less traffic, so it's a nice one to go to.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to exploring that area and learning more about those trails and actually getting out on them.
Yeah.
My current ride is I've got a 2016 BMW and F800 GSA, and so that's that bike's compared to your T7's got better suspension. I can tell you that right now. Yeah. But they're not that different. But those bikes, like, you think they can go everywhere. But boy, when they feel big, they suddenly feel very, very big.
They get real big, real fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll definitely handle Timberline, and you'll probably be okay on Marionville. But I would definitely go with somebody.
Yeah, it's so hard. People have asked us, can we put can you put difficulty ratings on your trail systems, on your maps?
Mm,
Because some areas are done that way, or some people have found maps that do that.
yeah,
And I just refuse to, because it's so subjective.
yeah,
Um, so much of the stuff that well, there's two problems with rating trails. One is, this is proven with research, from a sustainability perspective. If you call out a trail as a difficult trail, as a black trail, if you use the ski industry, blue, green,
yeah,
green easy, blue intermediate, black expert, double black twice as, more expert, um, they become magnets,
yeah,
so they kind of get overused.
yeah,
Um, and they also become magnets that put pressure on the local EMS services, because that's where people inadvertently break their femur or break their ankle or something when they
yeah,
go down, or even if they're in a four-wheel drive or something, that's where they snap a CV or something and they're stranded. And that only potentially leads to road closures or trail closures,
yeah,
which is not, which is absolutely not what we're trying to have happen. Um, and calling something, that line, is it easy? Is it intermediate? Is it hard? Like on the Bald Eagle trail system, it's single track or double track. Um, and that's a good guideline, that basically, if you're on a single track, that's going to be more smaller, enduro friendly
yeah,
type of a trail. But some of that the other things that can happen, right? So you're on that. I've had bad experience, not bad experiences, just experiences, right? I remember before COVID, we went to the New York City Cycle Show, and they were showing a bunch of enduro bikes, and they had the little ATV winches on the rear,
hmm,
on the racks off the back of the seat. And I'd never seen that before. And I made some cocky comment like, who needs a little winch on their bike? Damn, if it wasn't that like 3 months later, we were on one of the harder trails on the Bald Eagle trail system, and I was on my WR 250, which is a very capable, um, you know, trail bike. I mean, it's
yeah,
almost the closest you can get to a motocross bike with a plate. But there was a couple deadfalls down across a single track on a steep off camber face, and the only way we could get around them was to drop down off trail and then come back up.
uh-huh,
And we couldn't. It took me and another guy. It took us over an hour to get our two bikes up that, what was only like maybe 80 feet, but it was soft and loamy and not on trail, and the rear wheel would just dig in.
yeah,
And you had, one guy working the throttle and the other guy either pushing or trying to pull on the front wheel, or with all our gear on, we were just sweating buckets and exhausted. And I was like, oh, yeah, that little winch.
that would
Boy,
help.
we'd have been out of here in 15 minutes with no sweat. So, so yeah, what's hard and what's easy, what trouble you get into.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think weather makes a big difference too. Like if it's rained recently, if it's not rained, if it's dry, if it's wet, and then traffic going through it is inevitably going to change the terrain too. So to be able to constantly update potential skill level rating,
mhm.
it's just not doable.
No, and also, like, you just have no idea rider experience.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
there's a lot of riders that come to the game later in life, and I think that's great. But if they don't have a lot of two-wheel experience, there's a steep learning curve. I mean,
Yeah.
I was fortunate in that motorcycles were part of my life as a teenager, as was racing BMX, and then mountain biking and racing mountain bikes. And so two wheels are a little more natural for
Yeah.
me. But I have a lot of friends that come to the game later in life, and then they often, they start off with a big GS, and then
Yeah.
and sometimes that's great. And then there's a tremendous amount of talent out there. People that can make those midweights or bigger bikes do amazing things, and then it's
Yeah.
not a problem at all. But we try to tell people on those single tracks they should be like, 650 or smaller
Yeah, for sure.
type approaches, unless you're pretty comfortable.
Yeah, unless you have a lot of experience with it. So,
Yeah.
before I move on to the next topic, I just wanted to say that I'm happy to hear that you are working on that particular area in the PA Wilds, because that's where my tour actually takes place, up in that.
Hmm.
And then also, obviously, the Allegheny area. And it, like you said, it took me about 6 years to develop my loop that I put together for Allegheny, just because of all that constant change of a working forest. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having your maps too to help me, maybe, because I always change that loop a little bit here and there. I'll add pieces, I'll take a piece off,
Hmm.
different cool spots. So it'll be nice to have you go in there too and kind of do some work.
Sure. And I didn't look that closely at your actual route for the PA Wilds. But that's like a great example, because like there's the MABDRX route up there.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but you can put together so many routes.
yeah,
Like there are so many options. And I like the point to point is great, but I like the way you were doing it, where you come back to a spot.
yeah. That was when I came up to that area, because we explored like all over the place over there. My initial intention was to make like a kind of like a BDRX, kind of like my Allegheny one is.
Hmm.
Once I got up into that Sproul, Susquehannock, like Hammersley Wild area, I
Right.
mean, there's just so much good stuff here. I want to just it'll be different than my Allegheny one. I can plant in one spot, and people can pull in an RV. Don't have to worry about popping up camp every day and putting it down again. Just more
Hmm.
comfortable that way too. And then I can make that one slightly harder because we're not carrying a bunch of luggage. So there's a lot of great drivable trails up in that area that we try to utilize too. So that was definitely the point, was like there's just so many options to build things out there. So it just kind of fell in place for me to have it like that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people use our maps that way,
Yeah.
because a lot of people you can grab any of our maps and just pick a spot on it. If glamping's your thing, you want to stay at a motel or Airbnb or whatever in one of those little communities, you can figure that out. If you want to stay at a state park and camp, or maybe that state park has cabins to rent,
Yeah.
um, which sort of splits the difference. But from there, you can do a different direction each day, and you can go see a whole different part. Like you can literally go do 100 miles easily,
Yep.
200 miles, whatever you're up for, of exploring
Yeah.
um, a different direction every day, and see and have a completely different experience, but be able to come back to that same base camp at night. And I think from a motorcyclist perspective, that's become my preference, just because I don't like having to ride with all the gear all the time.
Yeah. It makes
Like carrying all your camping stuff. Like there's a beauty to that, but
yeah.
as I get older, I'm less enamored with the living off the bike approach, and I'm
Yeah.
more like, let's just have a base camp and then just go ride light and fast each day and come back.
It definitely makes it easier. Yeah, for that one, like you said, first day we shoot north, second day we shoot south, third day it's more west-ish, and then the last day it's a little shorter. We go kind of like northwest. So we hit
Hmm.
all these different great areas and can kind of highlight stuff. So the other thing I was wanting to talk about, as I was researching Purple Lizard before we talked, I saw on your website, you have on there the 1% for the planet, tread lightly. So if you could, just for a couple minutes, like talk about what your affiliation is with those things and what they are.
Yeah, well, that's just part of trying to give back. So we've been a part of 1% for the planet literally since they started. We got on board with those guys early on. I thought that was a great deal. I really like what they're about and what they're doing. So we give 1% of our gross each year goes to them. And actually, it can just go to them, but we can allocate it. So the 1% for the planet has recipient partners and donor partners. So a business is a donor partner. We can choose the recipient. So what we try to do is spread that love out across our different maps. So we look for some of the different environmental nonprofits that are involved on each of our maps, and we try to, circulate through and make cash donations each year, to spread that out back into the communities that we're actually mapping.
Awesome.
And Tread Lightly, again, is just trying to share their message.
Yeah.
It's just a partnership to try to share their message. We do a annual cleanup day in Rothrock State Forest, as part of the Mid-Atlantic Overland Festival every August. And then the Mid-Atlantic Overland Festival is that's certainly open to bikes. It's more the overland crew,
Yeah.
but that's where the Tour Tech Rally was dovetailed with that one year. And that's on a 200-acre farm in Huntington, Pennsylvania. And that's put together by the guys out of Westchester, PA, the Mainline Overland, who outfit trucks and sprinter vans and rigs and stuff for overlanding. But that's a really good gathering. And so we partner with Tread Lightly there, and we go out and either reclaim. We ask the foresters, what can we do? We can put together 6 to 10 vehicles with 10 to 20 volunteers, and we can go out and clean up illegal fire rings. We can go clean up a dump site or something, and trailer that stuff out, whatever you need help with. So
Nice.
that's just part of trying to give back. And Tread Lightly does a lot of good things. They're industry based, so they have a little more flexibility to help financially in a way. Like if a state forest needs a parking lot kiosk, or maybe they had maybe something was damaged, vandalism damaged or something, and they need $2,500 to fix it. For them to get the $2,500, like, they can get it, but it might take a season. There's a whole lot of red tape and paperwork to be like, hey, this happened, we need to requisition additional funds for this, and then the manpower to do it. And if you have an affiliation with Tread Lightly, you can make that request to Tread Lightly, and if they can fund it, then you can solve your problem in 30 days, not a year or a year and a half.
Yeah, that's a big difference. That's great.
So trying to also connect those dots of, the Tread Lightly folks do a good job of being across the whole gamut of outdoor rec. People don't think of them as supporting hiking and things like that, but they do. Where like the origin of that stuff, the Leave No Trace organizations are great, but they were all about backpacking, and then a lot of the hikers or the backpackers might think a little bit differently and be like, well, we don't, we're not, Tread Lightly is not for us. It's like, well, if you're driving your car through the state forest to go on your hike, that's motoring. That's
Right.
And if you can just get it in your head that when you stop at that overlook, if you see trash there, if you see some plastic bags or some cigarette butts or whatever it is, like, take an extra few minutes and just pick them up and put them in your car, because you've got the room, and drive them out of there, just so that the ravens or the crows or the fox or the rabbits, whatever, don't come there and chomp on that Marlboro filter that somebody decided to flick down there.
That's like when I take the tours out in those areas, that's kind of a thing that I mentioned too. It's like that Boy Scout thing, like, try to take out more than what you brought in. So
but it's harder for a motorcyclist.
Yeah, we're a little bit more limited for sure.
Right. I try to carry, like, if I've got the bags, or sometimes I'll just carry a empty Ziploc. I'll try to put it in my riding jacket pocket.
Yeah.
So if I get there, I've got a little baggie I can put, some of the things I look for to pick up are like things that animals are going to be attracted to.
Yeah.
So, like, a pink straw, a broken plastic fork, those are those are like the things that you're looking at. You're like, well, it's not like that's gonna actually be absorbed into the environment, but something's going to eat it. So
Yeah.
try to pack that stuff out. And then in our truck, when we're doing our field work in our truck, I keep a drywall bucket since it's a pickup truck. Keep a drywall bucket in the back,
Oh, there you go.
and that way we can throw, bottles, cans. Uh, the bane of my existence is those freaking helium balloons that
Oh, yeah.
they sell in supermarkets that always end up happy birthday stuck in the trees or something on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. Walking in and pulling those bright shiny things out.
Yeah. So another thing I noticed on your website, and it was new to me. I don't know how new it is, but it was something about Purple Lizard Digital.
Yeah, we're on two app platforms currently.
Okay.
We're on the Avenza platform, so you can go to Avenza and buy our maps for digital download through them, and then you can use them on the Avenza app.
Yeah.
So you'll see them on your phone or your tablet. You have to use them within that app, and then you can drop pins or do all the things that you want to do on an app with it. And then
Okay.
we're also on the Hiker platform, and Hiker is a subscription-based platform, and at the higher subscription level, you get access to third-party maps and such. So
Okay.
it's really nice. You can just turn on the Purple Lizard layer, and when you zoom in, our map will blossom there. And
Yeah.
they also have like the USGS topos and the other maps, so you can toggle between what map you want to actually see. But you can record your track and drop your pins
Yeah.
and do a lot of stuff there. And
Yeah.
I haven't gotten a response from Gaia, but trying to sort of work with make our maps available with the other platforms
Yeah.
as a really small company with, well, we have a substantial amount of maps now. I mean, we've got 20 maps.
Yeah.
It's tricky trying to get those doors to open.
Yeah. Well, I've used that Avenza platform before when I rode the Wayne National Forest Trail System.
Hmm.
I did like it was really nice because it was basically like if you're looking at the trail map, like the paper trail map that they give you, it's basically that on a phone app, and it puts your point like on that map, so you put yourself on that trail map, which was really nice, and then you can figure out, oh, we're at this particular intersection of a trail, I can go this way or that way, and or if I want to go to lunch, this is how to get to town. Like it was really nice, made it much easier to have that plus like the paper trail map to make everything make sense. It was really nice.
Yeah, exactly. And we use the Avenza when we're making the maps. We'll so Avenza is actually the software that we design our maps in as well.
Okay.
So we design our maps in Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop. And Avenza has a product called Map Publisher, which is a GIS plugin that allows us we import all of our data as whether it's shape files or GPX tracks or things like that. When we're making our map, we go out and we mine all the available data that we can find. And then the first few months is spent sorting through that data to figure out what's crap and what's true. And so, we'll get the data from the county, or we'll get the data from the national forest, or we'll get the data from the state forest, and we'll get data from other sources, whether that's I think I subscribe to all of the different app things. So we go to Trailforks and Strava, and we can just start to compare, and we'll be reading people's blogs, and we'll be looking at folks like you that might put your tracks up on your routes. And we'll just sort of like dump all this stuff into the files. And then we start to sort through and see what are the anomalies, like if all that data lines up the same, then you're like, yeah, that road's probably there. But every now and then, if there's like just one trail or one road on one of those sources, then that's questionable. So we'll like highlight that and be like, all right, we got to ask the forestry on this, or when we drive out, we got to see if this is still there or not. So trying to bring in all that data and sort through it is a huge part of the puzzle. And then that's a whole different part from the design, from actually making the map pretty and legible and useful,
Hmm.
and figuring out the hierarchy of what's visually important on the map.
Yeah.
That comes later when we figure out who's actually using that forest, um, trying to make that legible.
Well, before we close out, I think the last thing I wanted to kind of touch on again, because you kind of mentioned it earlier, that the co-owner of Purple Lizard Maps is your wife,
Hmm.
Justine. So, as I've been building Appalachian ADV, I've been trying to find companies like you that are, the small mom and pop where we can create some type of synergy between the two of us and make something happen. So, I'd like to know exactly maybe what your wife does for the company. I noticed she had some pretty colorful job descriptions on the website. So I just wanted to kind of hear from your point of view, like what does she help you do over there?
She keeps it on track. Justine handles all of our partnerships. Justine handles the website. Justine handles a lot of most of our marketing and our outreach and our advertising, like our messaging. She helps qualify all the different relationships with the nonprofits and the other partners that we might interact with there. And she's out in the field uh, with us, actually working on figuring the maps out as
Yeah.
well. So she is, where I'm the artist, she's much more the business person.
Okay.
Um, and she definitely tempers, my optimism. I'll look at a landscape like that and be like, oh, no problem. I can get out there and get that figured out in 2 days. And she'll be like, no, there's no way you're going to be able to do that in 2 days. That's gonna take all week. And she's usually right on that. I always think I can cover more ground than I actually can, or things will go faster. That's the interesting thing. As a business grows, it's really tough because I love to draw maps, and obviously, for a long time I spent a lot of my life actually being the person that was drawing all the maps. But as your business grows, there's so much other stuff that starts to cross your plate that you have to pay attention to, that now, our team, Bill and Aaron, are drawing most of the maps. I'm overseeing it and coming in and doing final design. I do the field work, and we're out meeting with the communities and talking to people, and doing the podcasts with folks like you and things like that. Um, but yeah, certainly when you look back to when it was just like one or two maps, and I had a full-time job, it was a fun thing, a creative outlet to do
Yeah.
in my spare time. And then you start to have a tipping point when you actually have employees, and then you know it's January, so January we spend a lot of time reviewing accounting. It's like getting ready for tax season. Or is everything in order from last year? What do we have to have paperwork and stuff put together? So yeah, Justine's a huge part of actually keeping Purple Lizard running on track, and trying to realistically figure out what it is that we can undertake.
Yeah.
Just because I'm always, my fault is always saying yes to yes to everything, whether that makes sense or not.
Yeah. That's good. So she's the voice of reason for you. I saw she's a lawyer too, huh?
Yes. Yep. So she's an attorney, or as I say, a recovering attorney. She handles she reviews all of our legal contracts and things like that. But she does keep, she hangs her shingle, um, but she's not working with a firm or full time working as an attorney, but bringing that skill set. And she has a background working in nonprofits and stuff, so she understands business and how that stuff works in
That's
a
great.
way that I'm more, in the weeds, like saying, well, where does this trail go? Like, what, I got to figure out this trail. I don't have time to figure out that contract.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I had a great time, hearing your story and talking to you. And I really look forward to our further collaboration. And once you get over to PA Wilds Allegheny, hit me up and we'll see if we can get out there together.
I will, and if you're you mentioned you might want to come back and ride some Rothrock or some Bald Eagle stuff. I'd love to show you some stuff here. And we do have a map of Wayne almost done.
Nice.
So I'll have to share that one with you. I hope that sees some daylight this year to get published. But yeah, we need to chase each other's wheel for a day.